If I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None.
President Joe Biden forcefully shutting down calls for him to step aside while holding a high-stakes press conference last night. Answering reporters' questions, Biden at one point referring to Vice President Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. Following the news conference, more Democrats calling for a new candidate, but others defending the president, saying his knowledge of foreign policy should reassure voters. Meanwhile, we are just 3 days away from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. There, former President Donald Trump is expected to announce his running mate. A new report says the last person to speak before the running mate at the convention will be Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. And he is a close friend of one Veep contender, Senator J.D. Vance. But we'll have to wait and see who after their drones spotted sharks. This follows several recent shark attacks in Florida and Texas. But experts say the water is no more dangerous than usual and that sharks are on track to attack the average number of people in a typical year. Those are your headlines. Now here's a look at your weather on the ones.
The rain continues in parts of the East Coast today, except it's in a little bit different location. Yesterday it was in Vermont. Today it's more so in the Carolinas, especially the eastern side of there. Otherwise, across the west, still a lot of heat, especially across the interior west. But some parts of the Pacific Northwest get a little bit of a break. It's still hot, though. Portland at 89, Seattle at 83. That's above normal. But triple digits for places like Boise, Salt Lake City, Denver, Vegas, and of course down in Phoenix as well.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. I'm Bree Driscoll. Today is Friday, July 12th. Our top story, President Joe Biden holding a high-stakes news conference. He insisted he's not leaving the race as he tried to dispel doubts over his fitness for office after a disastrous debate 2 weeks ago.
And if you look at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing.
The president answering reporter questions as a growing number of Democratic lawmakers ask him to step aside. Our Angie Gonzalez has more.
Shortly before President Joe Biden's press conference, he made a mistake when introducing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We've got President Putin.
And during the news conference, he made another gaffe, mistakenly referring to Vice President Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president until I think she was not qualified to be president.
Aside from that mistake, Biden answered reporters' questions for about 45 minutes, at times with a voice just above a whisper, and at other points, much more forceful.
More children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death.
He also highlighted his vast foreign policy experience and highlighted what he deemed one of the most successful NATO summits he's been a part of. But he couldn't shake nagging concerns about whether he's fit to serve another 4 years.
If I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None.
That his neurologist says he's in good shape.
I think I should have a neurological exam again. I'll do it.
And he left open the possibility that delegates at next month's Democratic National Convention might vote their conscience if they don't have confidence he can finish the job.
Tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Those assurances did not change the mind of Congressman Jim Himes, who is among more than a dozen Democratic lawmakers who are asking the president to withdraw from the race.
Because you're not just gambling your own political reputation, you are gambling the future of the United States of America.
But Biden still has his supporters.
As long as he's at the top of the ticket, I am standing with my president.
Angie joins us now. Angie, we're hearing some top Democrats are expressing concern about Biden behind closed doors. What are you seeing?
So, Bree, CNN reporting that both former President Barack Obama and Representative Nancy Pelosi, the former speaker, have spoken to each other privately and expressed their concerns about the future of Biden's 2024 race. Now, Pelosi says that she's spoken to Biden since the debate, and earlier this week in an interview on MSNBC, she said it's up to Biden to decide whether or not he's going to stay in the race. Now, former President Barack Obama has not made any public comments on Biden's ability to serve for another 4 years, but shortly after the debate, he wrote on social media, quote, "Bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know." Now, Obama has joined Biden at 2 fundraising events this year, Bree. That includes the event in Los Angeles last month with actor George Clooney, who this week said he was alarmed by Biden's performance. Bree?
Right, Angie Gonzalez, thank you very much. Political director Bob Hart joins us now. Bob, did Biden's news conference shift the conversation about him stepping down one way or another?
I think Biden is sort of in the eye of the beholder. If you were a Democrat and you had questions about him, you can still have plenty of questions about him because he confused Trump with Kamala Harris. On the other hand, if you're a Democrat who likes Biden, wants him to stay in, he gave an overall masterful discussion about foreign policy for over an hour. So there's something for everyone there. I don't think it really is going to tip the scale one way or the other, although it is interesting to note that since that press conference, a couple more Democrats in the House are calling for him to get out of the race.
But it really didn't put a stop to the conversation about him stepping down. I also want to play 2 clips from President Biden. One is from his interview with George Stephanopoulos last week. The other one is from the press conference yesterday. Let's take a listen.
If the Lord Almighty came down and said, "Joe, get out of the race," I'd get out of the race. The Lord Almighty's not coming down. I mean, these hypotheticals, George, I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump, too. But it's awful start from scratch.
Bob, the forcefulness about his commitment to staying in this race sounds a little different between those 2 comments.
Listen, his own campaign is now polling Harris at the top of the ticket to see how Harris would fare against Trump. Now, the president also said that polls aren't going to show him losing to Trump or doing worse. So I think that the aides want to confirm that and show that. But yes, there was a slight rhetorical move from last night to the last week. But I still felt like he's not budging, at least not publicly. He was pretty forceful last night.
And Bob, we are at more than a dozen Democrats calling for Biden to step aside. The president saying he is staying in the race. In your opinion, what is the tipping point where we would see the convention contested?
Well, I don't think the convention will ever be contested. I think what would happen is if Biden were to get out, it would be his own decision. If there was an open revolt at the convention, it would be a complete disaster for the party, where you'd have delegates yelling at each other. You'd have different candidates potentially being put forward. I think the only real alternative where the party could still beat Trump would be going with the vice president, and it would be Biden directing his delegates to vote for her. Anything else would be, I'd say, pretty much of a disaster for the party, and a heavy, not a guarantee, but a huge, huge boost for Trump.
All right, Bob Hart, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bree.
Well, we're just 3 days away from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, where former President Donald Trump will formally accept the party's nomination for president and name his running mate. And new reports saying the last person to speak before the running mate at the convention will be Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. He is a close friend of one Veep contender, Senator J.D. Vance. But we'll have to wait and see who winds up getting the nod. And stay with Spectrum News for the latest on the RNC. Our political team will have special live coverage from Milwaukee at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific from Monday through Thursday. A pair of basketball-playing brothers are paying it forward to the next generation of athletes by teaching them important life lessons on and off the court. Their story coming up right here on Spectrum News.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Eric Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable solutions to keep you connected. At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Of course, the heat continues across parts of the West today. Some spots near the coast, though, get a break, like San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, not too bad in the 70s and 80s. But places like Denver and Vegas, look at that, triple digit. 100 degrees in Denver today, 118 in Vegas. It's been awfully close to 120 most days lately. And the thing is, at night, it doesn't cool off too much. 91 for the overnight low, so that air conditioner still working hard overnight. It's not as hot on the East Coast, but still fairly humid as we have a lot of moisture in place. You can see Atlanta in the mid-90s, 80s for D.C., Boston, New York City, upper 80s in Boston. That's still well above normal. I do expect some showers, though, and storms across the East Coast for today, except down in Atlanta. It looks a little bit sunnier down there. That moisture not making it that far west. There are some cooler spots across the Midwest tonight. You can see 60s in Columbus and Chicago, but that's normal for this time of year. Places like New York City, D.C., down towards Raleigh, staying in the 70s tonight, and again out west, still very warm with overnight lows in the low 90s for Phoenix and Vegas. Again, it gets a little bit better for places like San Francisco and Portland, falling back to the upper 50s. Heat continues tomorrow across the southwest. You can see Phoenix and Vegas in the teens, but not quite as hot as today. Salt Lake City, Boise, and Denver still just as hot, though, well around the triple digits, and even Casper, Wyoming at 99 degrees for tomorrow. And across the East Coast, pretty hot still in D.C., 91 in Raleigh, although that's not, incredibly abnormal for this time of year across the mid-Atlantic and northern parts of the South. And in terms of rain across the Southwest, we do have the monsoon starting to get going. So places like, the higher elevations of New Mexico and Arizona expected to see some pop-up showers and storms for today. And really, that's going to be the case over the next several days. Each afternoon, you'll see here just random pop-up showers and storms across some of the higher terrain of Arizona and New Mexico as well. I'll show you what the East Coast looks like coming up in less than 10 minutes.
Well, if you're just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. President Joe Biden holding a high-stakes press conference last night amid growing calls for him to step aside. At one point, when answering reporters' questions, Biden referred to Vice President Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. Meanwhile, we are just 3 days away from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. There, former President Donald Trump is expected to announce his running mate. And in New York, police closing parts of Rockaway Beach after shark sightings. Officials don't know if the same shark or different ones were spotted. This follows several recent shark attacks in Florida and Texas. And that's a look at what you need to know this morning. Testimony continuing in the trial of Alec Baldwin, with the lead detective in the case returning to the stand today. Baldwin is charged with involuntary manslaughter in the killing of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust. Prosecutors are trying to cast the movie star as reckless, while the defense says he was just an actor doing his job. Baldwin says he didn't pull the trigger of the gun and that it accidentally discharged. Prosecutors may also call the film's armorer to the stand, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who has already been convicted of involuntary manslaughter for the shooting. Her lawyer says she'll take the Fifth Amendment if she's called to testify. According to NCAA, out of the nearly 20,000 current college athletes, only about 1% of men and less than 1% of women go on to play professionally. But among that small group is a pair of brothers who's trying to help prepare aspiring athletes for what life after college might look like. Spectrum's Cassidy Wilson takes us to a new camp that aims to teach kids life skills.
Playing sports can pave the way for many young kids, whether it's becoming better athletes, competitors, or teammates. And there's a camp here at Westerville South High School that's led by some athletes that have gone on to play at the next level, who are teaching not only basketball skills, but they're giving these kids the chance to learn that it's not just about elevating your game, but elevating yourself. This might look like your average summer basketball camp.
It's gonna be too much time. Good work.
But Andre and Caleb Wesson are using their skills and knowledge to help the next generation.
The biggest part of it actually is off the court.
The brothers from Westerville South, who went on to play at Ohio State and now professionally overseas, are running a 3-day basketball camp at their high school alma mater for kids going into 3rd through 8th grade. But the camp goes beyond just teaching basketball skills.
The biggest thing that I try to teach them or preach to them every morning is get to know your neighbor. Relationships. That's what I told them first day. I think it would be a waste of their parents' money and having them come here if they didn't build a relationship.
And who better to learn those lessons from than former players who used to be in these kids' shoes, including some of the Wesson brothers' former teammates who didn't make it to the professional level.
You know, we have me and Andre, who are current professional basketball players, and Ennis, who played collegiate basketball at a high level, but you know, he also is just in finance right now. So making sure that we have those backgrounds that we can give these kids and provide them with all the avenues that they could possibly go through in this process.
The hope is that the kids leave camp not just as better basketball players, but better people as well.
We're going to be sitting there asking them a bunch of questions about zone coverages and their reads and stuff like that. We want to know the avenues and the process it took you to get to your degree. What made you pick that degree? You know, what were those things that pushed you to do this, that, the third?
Caleb says he wants to give the kids an opportunity he didn't have when he was younger.
Growing up in Columbus, there wasn't a lot of pro athletes that you physically see, put your hands on, that they would actually come up and talk to you.
And both Wesson brothers want the kids to walk away remembering that it's truly about building relationships and getting involved with your community.
Basketball can take you more places than just, on TV. Those people who play on TV, that's the 1% of basketball players.
For Spectrum News, I'm Cassidy Wilson.
One of the most recognizable shows on Broadway is making a reimagined return to the stage. Our Frank DeLella joins us with what makes this production of Cats so unique. That's just ahead right here on Spectrum News.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation, with balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Oh boy. our back and forth, it always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
We got a weak low pressure system kind of starting to track up the East Coast. Although it's not very well put together, there is going to be a decent amount of moisture from it. So the eastern part of the Carolinas, Virginia into Maryland, up into Delaware, New Jersey. This is where we're looking at potential for some heavy rainfall today. A lot of moisture here coming in from the tropical Atlantic. You can see this afternoon showers and storms heavy around the Raleigh area and east, and same thing from the Richmond area east. And then as we head up into, say, parts of the Delmarva Peninsula, you'll start to see that heavier rainfall come in as we head toward the late afternoon, early evening hours, getting up into New Jersey around that time as well. Even New York City seeing some showers and downpours from time to time. This will continue into your Saturday, so it's certainly going to be a wet weekend in some spots from, again, eastern North Carolina up the Virginia, Delaware, Maryland coastlines, New Jersey coastline, so maybe not the best weekend for the beach at the Jersey Shore, at least on Saturday. You can see the showers do start to become a little bit more intermittent later in the day Saturday, so by Sunday, this is where we start to see an improvement. So if you are looking to make beach plans maybe across the East Coast, whether it's in southern New England, the Jersey Shore, or down in North Carolina, your best bet is probably going to be Sunday, although we still cannot rule out a few pop-up showers, although we will start to see more sunshine and overall more hours of the day will be dry by Sunday compared to Saturday. So most of this rain again is going to be between today and tomorrow. We could see maybe 2 to 4 inches of rain, parts of North Carolina, Virginia, into the Delmarva Peninsula, also parts of New Jersey as well. So some wet weather there. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we do start to see that the monsoon pick up a little bit, parts of Arizona into New Mexico. So do expect a couple inches in some spots over the next few days. In the meantime, out in the tropics, it remains quiet. I know we were watching that weak low pressure system out off towards the Atlantic, but now that is definitely not expected to develop. It's a very weak system. It's going to move on land. We also have some Saharan dust that's moving through the tropical Atlantic and into the Caribbean, and this can really bring some drier air in place down there. And so for now, at least in the near future, it's not looking like tropical development is going to be all that likely. You can see as we head towards Sunday into the second half of the weekend, some of that Saharan dust does make its way back into, say, South Florida. So we will see some of that haze continue into parts of Florida as we head into next week.
Andrew Lloyd Webber's 1983 Tony Award musical Cats is back, but this time like you've never seen it before. The revival just opened to rave reviews off Broadway at the Perlman Performing Arts Center in New York City. This new production is set in the world of ballroom, which is an underground dance competition created by the Black and Latino, queer and trans communities. On-stage host Frank DeLella recently stopped by the Perlman to check in with the Cats co-choreographer and Master Vogue dance artist Arturo Lyons.
It is a mixture of ballroom and musical theater, so you want to honor both because ballroom is very particular on making sure it's honored. I'm pretty sure musical is the same way, so it's always been a task to make sure it's blended perfectly.
And Frank joins us now. Now, this is a revival, but there's no cats in this one.
There are no
cats.
Not a cat to be found. There are people competing in these various competitions that you would have in the ballroom scene, like the category of opulence or tag team. And every song and every character is part of this competition. And it works, Brie. You know, when you first think of ballroom and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats, you know, you may not put two and two together.
Right.
But if you really start to think about it and break it down, because the structure of the show is, this is this cat, that is that cat.
It's
it
just
kind
like
of
the
works.
categories of
it
the
works.
competition.
Yeah, it totally works.
But the music is the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'll get all the classics like Memory and Mr. Mistopheles. And I have to say, you know, this was the very, very first show I saw. I saw the national tour in Philadelphia when I was 4 years old. So like hearing these bops all over again was just a blast.
And Hamilton alum Sidney James Harcourt plays the role of Rum Tum Tugger, correct?
Yeah, and I caught up with him to talk a little bit more about going to Lower Manhattan as opposed to Broadway to do this new show.
You know, we use cats as a euphemism for queer in our show. And it's a way in a community that is so marginalized and doesn't have opportunities to find a hierarchy, to find fame and recognition for hard work and artistry that won't be given to you anywhere else. And that is why I think Cats and ballroom work so well together, because here are all of these cats trying to show who they are and what they do and what name they want to be called by.
Now, ballroom has always been thought of as underground. Do you see this show coming to Broadway?
Well, it's funny you ask, because Andrew Lloyd Webber is in New York City this week, and I hear he will be at the show this week to figure out next steps for the show.
So not out of the realm of possibilities.
No, I think, you know, I definitely think there will be another life for this cat.
More than 9.
Whether it's Broadway or it's another found space somewhere in New York.
And what else do you have coming up on stage?
Well, I'll sit down with the stars of The Great Gatsby, which is going strong right now on Broadway, as well as the stars of Suffs, a new musical which won 2 Tony Awards recently at the 2024 Tony Awards ceremony.
Lots of great stuff. Frank DeLella, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brie.
And you can always stay connected with us here at Spectrum News by getting your national and local headlines on the go. Just download the free Spectrum News app. It's available in the App Store and on Google Play. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out."